Get started. So this is the worker co-op farms as a solution to retaining local farms. So we have today myself, Cameron Atello, the program manager for food and ag cooperative development here at California Center for Cooperative Development. We help co-ops form and we help them develop. We help with technical assistance, all sorts of projects. We work on housing co-ops, worker co-ops, whether it's grocery or other. There's also shared services cooperatives between different businesses for marketing and for other purposes. And then, of course, in this case, worker-owned farms, just to name a few. And then, of course, our panelists. Today we have Joaquin Jimenez, who's the founder over at Rancho San Benito, also a member of the Latino Council of Half Moon Bay, farm work liaison for Puente and Alas, and a city council member at the city of Half Moon Bay. Leah Schwartzman, senior program manager, California FarmLink, appointee to USDA Advisory Committee on Beginning Farmers and Ranchers. Might be kind of a deep cut for you there. And then Lucio Day, thank you so much for coming. Worker owner at Flying V Farm and board member at Food Cooperative in Placerville Food Cooperative, I believe. I tried to get all of your fanciest pictures. All right, so again, worker co-op farms as a solution to retaining local farms. And then a little bit more detail about what we're going to discuss today. This is specifically about how to keep local farms in local hands by allowing retiring farmers to sell their farm and their farmland to farmers who are going to own it and cultivate it using a cooperative model. And we'll go a little bit more broad than that as well, because we're going to get into it. We'll get into it right now. So we have sort of a big opportunity in front of us right now, a big challenge. And this is that in the next 10 or 15 years, about 50% of farmers are going to retire. So you can see in my sort of a beautiful graphic here, we have this sort of big question of what's going to happen to these farms. Are they going to sell to, really, really large international conglomerates? Are they going to be transferred over to newer, smaller farmers, farm workers? And there's sort of a lot of the future of agriculture sort of hangs in the balance of what's going to happen. And of course, we don't know. And there are lots of challenges. Let me get this out of the way here. And so let's just go ahead and pass to our panelists here. Let's start, just because you're on my top left, Leah, let's start with you about just how you think about this challenge and this problem and how it relates to just sort of how you think about this problem in your work, I guess.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for joining. I think that I like to think first from a positive perspective that this is an opportunity. We are going to see folks retiring and their land and businesses have the opportunity to be placed in the hands of a next generation of diverse farmers and ranchers. And so how do we put ourselves in a position to be most able to seize that opportunity? And so I think that that's kind of one of the things that I would like for us all to explore here in this conversation today. Obviously, that's not ignoring that there are significant challenges. There's financial challenges to this, specifically for the next generation. There are needs of retiring generation of farmers. Most folks did not plan for retirement. Most of their finances are tied up in their business and potentially land ownership. And so how do we also serve and honor those who are retiring and have them have a comfortable retirement while still making it possible for next generation farmers to move into these ownership and management positions that are going to become available. So I think that there are a lot of models out there for us to explore, including the cooperative model, including worker-owned models. And I think that it's going to require a lot of preparation, and it's going to require a lot of education of that retiring generation, who often have just not even, for whatever reason, it has not even crossed their mind to potentially look to their farm manager and their farm workers as potential owners of their land or business. And we can talk about those systemic and institutional reasons why that is the case. And we can talk about building wealth as a farm worker, and how that, potentially they haven't been paid enough to be able to save up to be able to purchase or own these businesses. So, there are changes that need to be made, and there's a lot of work for us to be done. But again, I just like to frame this around opportunity and how can we seize this moment? Because we need to, because if we don't, these properties and these businesses are going to go to the highest bidder, and that is going to be those institutional owners. It's going to be consolidating our agricultural lands. It's going to be, multinational, international conglomerates and all these things that we're seeing. And I think that everybody potentially in this audience is valuing that these lands and businesses stay in the hands of local, next generation, diverse group of innovative and inspiring farmers and ranchers that we have on the line here today. So I'll stop there because this is a huge topic.
We have some time. So what I'm hearing is there are issues with education and sort of long-term planning for the businesses themselves. There is a great opportunity here if we sort of plan for it and intend on it, and then coordinate really at sort of a larger scale, larger anyways. Lucy, let's go to you. From your experience and your perspective, how are you seeing this sort of big problem, this obstacle, opportunity, better said?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here. And thanks, Leah. We worked a lot with Leah and appreciate her perspective all the time. And I agree a lot with what Leah said. I mean, one, it's important to think about things in a positive light before you start spiraling into the fear of how things could go really wrong in the future. I think that, gosh, that's a big question. I'm going to kind of piggyback off of Leah. I was just thinking about there's a real discrepancy between how the farms of retiring farmers are valued and how the workers are able to purchase the farm. And that seems to be a really strong issue with succession, especially when you're not talking about the children of the farmer, but the workers. And I think it would be really important to start expanding the idea of who deserves to be the successor when it's not the child of the farmer, but a worker who is unrelated. And it would be lovely to see more of that happening, where you can see farmers expanding their ability to value their farms at a fair price for the successor who is the worker, but also being able to retire. And I think on both ends of the generations, those who are coming into ownership and those who are leaving are struggling financially, and that's a hard place to work from. There's so many challenges to becoming a farmer in general, but then to be the successor of a farm that already has a value, especially a brand. And I think that's an interesting area to talk about, is how to value a brand of a farm. And that usually comes down to the customer base and the money coming in. But I've seen that happen a lot with this new kind of succession of the boomers retiring and people coming in is it just being too expensive to buy the brand, even if you are going to lease the land from them, which is also precarious. So, I mean, land access, capital access, housing are all huge issues for farmers, especially young farmers without money. And that kind of ties into the ability to be the successor of a farm that was owned previously by someone that you can't afford. So then you're looking at third parties who could potentially purchase the land from the owner and then you lease it from them, which I've seen fail and succeed. But the benefits are really major. I mean, just in terms of worker cooperatives, having shared labor and responsibility and a sense of purpose together is huge. A connection to the greater community and to the earth. The worker co-op model really opens up that ability for you to set a mission as a farm rather than just be profit driven, but to share values that are community based. If you have 6 people owning a farm, you have 6 people with their communities that they're thinking about and how to benefit the workers and the people that are eating the food and the ecosystem surrounding the farms. And that goes into the wildlife too. But yeah, I think what comes in is third-party support, which Leo works for California FarmLink, and that is essential. And I think CCCD has the opportunity here to provide not only technical support, but also financial support to this opportunity of succession. And I don't really know where that pot of money exists, but it does feel like there needs to be financial assistance for this to succeed for younger farmers or anybody wanting to be the successor of a piece of land that is either going to go up for sale to question mark or to people who have the intention of growing food for their community.
All right, thank you. A lot of points there, and we'll have a chance to get into more of the sort of what to do, how to address it, what we can do going forward. Some of the major issues there were this sort of balance, this conflict between the retiring farmers' ability to retire, which in large part kind of means how much money they get for their business and their property, and then of course that being the amount of money that the incoming farmers are going to have to pay somehow. And then the precarity of trying to do sort of a long-term lease or long-term financing versus coming up upfront cash. And then also the challenge of starting a new brand versus sort of working with an existing one and the value that comes with that. Plus there's also legacy, which people I've talked to bring up a lot because they put all their heart and soul, blood and sweat as well into their business for decades probably, and they want their legacy to continue. And then yeah, we'll get more onto the benefits of a worker co-op model later. Joaquin, let's go to you, sir. How are you seeing this what I was calling a problem, what we have renamed an opportunity?
Well, let's see. My name is Joaquin Jimenez. Thank you for having me. I'm in San Mateo County at the coast, Half Moon Bay area. And I am a very active member of my community. I do a lot of outreach in my community. So, this model that we have, Rancho San Benito Farming Co-op, was created with the idea of the conservation of our heritage, to be able to preserve, what we have here in the coast, thinking about farming and ranching, here in the coast. The Half Moon Bay coast is the only farming community in San Mateo County. So, we've seen the changes. We're gonna go back as far as 15 years. We are losing our farmland. There's less land being farmed. Farm workers are moving out of the area. It's getting expensive for farm workers to live in the area, making $12.50 an hour. with average income of about $25,000. In San Mateo County is way below poverty level. San Mateo County poverty level is $120,000 a year. So farm workers are not even close to it. So no, so this model was actually born with the idea to be able to have the farm workers, be our future farmers. With the retiring farmers, we have the super tsunami, retiring. So now we are giving the opportunity to farm workers through a co-op to continue that. The farmland is being sold to corporations, so we could lose to our big corporations, to developers, and of course to Mother Nature. So those are the three things that we see happening here in Half Moon Bay in the coast. Fortunately for us, we have organizations like POST, Peninsula Open Space, Trust, Land Trust in the coast. We also have groups like RCD. We also have a lot of our land trust, groups that would like to preserve, open spaces. So we are working with them, we do a lot of collaboration. We like to be, to implement that, building a relationship, and again, to give the farm workers the opportunity to become farmers. So we see that as an opportunity. We able to have farm workers bring extra income into their homes besides their day job. They will continue to work at our local farms, but in the afternoons, we'll do their own farming. Doing the numbers, going into the numbers, and we'll see a farm worker making about $12.50 an hour, average. And then we have we see running a co-op, they can bring up to $20 to $25, extra, into the home an hour. So that's a big jump. So given the opportunity, what we are implementing first, we want to take care of the land. Our first step, moving into a property is about healing the land, to be able to produce, quality, produce. Working with the climate change, what is farmable in our community? Climate change. So the model of Rancho San Benito is not just about farming. It's about working against climate change, working with our environment, protecting our open spaces, and healing the land. Part of our model, Rancho San Benito is bringing education, for farm workers, not how to farm, but actually how to run a business, how to run a budget, how to do marketing. So it's something, it will take time. So this is, again, to be able to preserve our open spaces and our farmlands. We already started a small group, of ranching here in the coast. A group of 10 people starting, to learn about what is to become a rancher for beef. And again, we're gonna go into other livestock. We are soon to start with our first, steps, moving into the farming co-op in collaboration. So, the idea of Rancho San Benito, again, is to stay, to keep the land, with the people that have been farming this land for decades. Our farmers are retiring. It is unfortunate that their next of kin, their children, their grandchildren, are not interested in farming anymore. So they are selling the land. And fortunately for us, we have farm workers that still want to continue to farm. If you see my avatar, my picture, behind me, those are 3 farm workers at the age of 60 and early 70s that are still farming, that are still working the land. So it is with them we are thinking about becoming members of the co-op. We also have younger farm workers in their 20s, 30s, and 40s that want to continue the heritage of farming, something they are bringing, from their motherland, either Mexico or South America. They want to do ranching, they want to do farming. So we see them with the opportunity to become our next farmers. And with that, we are, like say, healing the land is very important for us. Uh, not the use of pesticides, not the use of chemicals, by using techniques, of carbon sequestration, how to better heal the land, using composting, working with our uh, 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 resources that we have in the county, with groups that do composting, to bring the compost from the Half Moon Bay, from the coast, going back to the soils in our farms, and doing the continuous soil testing, working with our new farmers to do the irrigation systems that we will preserve the water, the natural resources, going from sprinkler systems to drip systems. So it's a program all around to be able to have farming to be part of our community for many decades to come, and with that protect our open spaces and our environment.
Thank you, Joaquin. That's beautiful. Covered a lot of ground there. I can always rely on you because you all have the big picture in mind. And so some of the obstacles that I was hearing there are, you have this issue where, like we said earlier, we're losing access to farmland. There's a couple of different reasons. You were talking about them going into conservation districts where they can't be farmed, talking about existing farm workers not earning enough, which is kind of mirroring some of the other points earlier. Gosh, there's a much bigger discussion to get into on farm worker pay. I don't think we can cover it all in the next hour plus, but we'll all still be here, so we'll talk about it again. All right, so now I want to move to, when thinking about the details of the opportunity, because no longer an obstacle, it's an opportunity, as you see them most pertinently. How are each of you interacting with this in your own work? Whether it's practices that you're doing, Lucy, we'll go to you first. You're farming now, so you're getting land access. You are farming somewhere, so you've sort of overcome this in a way. How do you see individual farmers, co-op farmers navigating getting access to land, and what are some of the particulars of that? Just how do you see individual co-ops of farms addressing this themselves?
Mm-hmm. I think that obviously finding land is your first question, and we found our land through California FarmLink, and that ended up being successful for us thus far. We have a long-term lease with our landlords, and we're only in our 4th year as a business, so I can't really speak to long-term success. And I think there still are a lot of questions about how to succeed just in general as a small-scale organic grower. But I think that in terms of forming a worker cooperative farm, you want to find and access land that's as affordable as possible. We were lucky with finding landlords who are wealthy, but also understand the startup time period for a small beginning farm and have been generous with the lease rates. I think you want to land somewhere where you have markets to sell to. That is unbelievably important. You know, sequestering yourself far off because land is affordable is going to make it really difficult to actually sell anything. So you want to make sure that you choose where you farm based on whether or not you can actually make a living selling your produce and aren't driving 3 hours one way and 3 hours back in an unrefrigerated van in 95-degree heat in the summer. you definitely want to form a group of people that have a really strong sense of commitment. And we came across that as a problem. We formed with 4 people and now we're down to 2. And that really came down to the 2 people who left just not being ready to commit to such a project and a life practice. And now losing 2 worker members has put us in debt to them because their ownership is valued as they leave. So that has been a financial struggle for us to have these debts to our previous business owners. I think if I could go back in time, I would try to form a group that felt very resolute in the project. And that's the hard thing to do unless you already are from the place. We moved to Placerville to start our business. So there's a lot of unknowns with starting somewhere new and starting a worker-owned business from scratch. I mean, it was our first business as well. So there's a lot of kind of things that you need to think about and be sure about going into something like this, starting a business, especially if you don't have like organizational support or a larger co-op supporting you. And I think what Joaquin is doing is really important, is having a body of support for farmers rather than trying to create it yourself. And it can work. And there are a few examples of successful worker-owned farm businesses. But I do think the way that Joaquin and his colleagues are thinking about this is really important, which is that farmers need support to succeed. And it's an isolating and difficult experience to start alone and from scratch, especially if you aren't coming from money. So that's where I feel like the third party support is kind of invaluable without business experience and without money yourself. So I feel like that model is intriguing to me. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I might have some other thoughts in a minute.
So I have a couple questions for you. When you were looking for land, how long did it take you? Well, I guess first, did you initially go to FarmLink to help find land, or did you start looking sort of on your own?
We started looking on our own, and actually the FarmLink came by way of an organization in Nevada City called Sierra Harvest, and they had found this piece of land, and this was the first piece of land that we looked at in our search and became the place that we landed. And that was for a few reasons, mainly being that we had a very, very agreeable lease operation happening between us and the landlords, and Leah wrote that lease with us. And the location was good. I mean, we're 45 minutes from downtown Sacramento, so that gives us a lot of sales options. And we have a lot of land. We're leasing 60 acres, so that gives us the opportunity to grow in crops and in membership. So I think at this point, what we're looking for is to grow in membership, but it is challenging to attract the right people to take the risk of becoming members. And that's kind of where we're at right now, is wanting to grow in membership, but feeling like there aren't clear avenues to finding people who want to jump in on our business and have the experience that we're looking for in terms of ownership and management. But we're kind of in a position now with 2 owners, which I did not want to be in, which feels like a lot of farms, which is the stress of being 2 people running a farm and wearing all the hats, versus the benefits of worker ownership, which is allowing many people to wear hats and manage the farm and relieve some of the pressure that comes with what feels like thousands of roles that you play as a farm owner.
And then, so you had you were interacting with Sierra Harvest, and then they had found the property and they connected you with FarmLink, and then they connected you with the property.
Yep, and we went and met the landlords in a meeting, and we had been very prepared. We had formed a steering committee before we even formed our business, so we knew what we wanted, and we had done a lot of work together to prepare to kind of sell ourselves to the right landlord, and that was successful for us. They were excited about what our plans were, and it went quite smoothly, and the lease went well. And so we got set up to kind of start the business. So I think it took about nine months in total before we broke ground and began the farm, which was in February of 2018.
You mentioned specific support. Was that sort of on business? Can you elaborate more on the specific support?
Sure. Obviously, FarmLink with the lease help was immense. I think that you should never, ever go into a farming agreement without a lease and an agreement. And that I can't drill any harder than possible. It's really dangerous to do something like that. And it puts your mind at a dangerous place as well. And you want to feel secure before you give everything that you have to build out a business. So please, 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 if you're going to start a farm and are leasing land, make sure that there is an agreement and use an organization like FarmLink to write that agreement. There's a lot of things that we had not even thought about that Leah brought to the table that now when we look at our lease feels very secure. FarmLink also offers an operating loan, so that I feel like is another area of support that we receive, that we get money each spring when we're low on cash flow in order to pay for the costs that we need to start the season when we're not making money, because our season of income is 6 or maybe 7 months a year. We're in the foothills and don't yet have a lot of season extension, so there's a lot of pressure on the months that we're not making money to make sure that we can make it to the next growing season. CCCD, if you're going to go the worker co-op route, is just one of many that offer technical and operational and emotional support for running a business and running a business with other people without a real system of hierarchy, which is beautiful but incredibly difficult at times, especially in the first years where you're learning who each other are on a more intimate level. And I would say that mostly falls into the category of financial discussions and the emotions that come with that, and the trepidation, risk levels, all of those things that are difficult to navigate. And that's where the co-op community offers a lot of support. So kind of invaluable and something I don't see otherwise in other areas of business. Like the co-op world is very supportive and transparent, and that has been very, very helpful for us.
So the different parts there are, especially lease support. There's probably some other business functions as well that are good to have some support, especially as a new business.
The FarmLink has the Resillerator class as well, which is a financial course that we've taken. It's mainly focused around finances, but also legal elements. And again, there's things that you just don't even know, and then you're informed, and either it ruins your day or it makes your day. But it's important to know either way. How to budget, what is legal, who can work on your farm, mostly nobody but your family for free. And that class is also just incredibly helpful. And I saw that Lola's here and the participants who taught that class through FarmLink, and you learn an immense amount about money management. I would say you need a bookkeeper, or you need to learn how to keep your books. Just treating it like a true business if what you're trying to do is actually support yourself and your family and your community. And that requires a lot of education and support from outside organizations.
So it's a great segue to shifting over to Leah. So many FarmLink callouts, and this will be a good. We'll get back to this after Leah. We'll go to Joaquin, because I know, Joaquin, you all are incorporating a lot of sort of business education with Alba and I'll let you tell the story. So Leah, can you talk to some of the things that you're doing in your work that are, or even FarmLink more broadly, are doing to help farmers address this sort of issue, finding land, getting land, forming cooperatives, being successful.
Yeah, well, there's no better endorsement than from Lucy. So thanks for all those call outs and just a really great way to explain some of those services. I won't go into much more detail on the ones that Lucy did mention. We have an online land portal where folks can find land opportunities. We're by no means the only source of land listings. It's actually one of the things that we need to do more of is engage and recruit more landholders in understanding and making available their land at affordable prices to next generation farmers. And I think that there are several ways to go about that. One route that we haven't talked about yet is policy, which maybe we could talk more about a little bit later. And the other way is just getting creative and getting the grassroots effort of a lot of these nonprofits that are working in the field to educate next generation farmers, and FarmLink is working also on some educational programs for landholders so that they're prepared and they understand the position of the land seeker, and they understand what might be required of their land and what might be required of them, and that they can, put themselves out there and make this land available, because it's really a need. And if we can provide some policy solutions that'll incentivize that, I'm all for it. So we have a land portal, and then we also offer one-on-one technical assistance for both the land seeker and the landholder in negotiating and developing equitable agreements. And our goal in that is just to make sure that the language is fully reflecting the understanding of both parties. Both parties are equally supported, and that the agreement is secure, and that they're discussing all the ins and outs and the what ifs that they may not have thought of. So we're neutral advocates. We're here to educate both sides on what their agreement says and make sure that it is reflective of those understandings. So I think that's a really important part of the process. Then we also have these educational programs that are really wonderful. We've got the Resillerator that Lucy just talked about, and Lola just threw a link in the chat about the Resillerator. We have a similar program. The Resillerator is web-based, so anyone can sign up for it. I think that our next Resillerator is happening in the fall. Maybe Lola can send something in the chat about when it's actually the next one is. And then we have a sister program to that that is in person on the coast, on the Central Coast, that is entirely in Spanish language. And then perhaps most relevant to what we're talking about here with the silver tsunami and land changing hands here in the next 10, 15 years, we actually are currently accepting applications for a program called the Regenerator, which is for retiring farmers and their teams. And we call it teams because not all successors are going to be within the family. They may be farm managers or employees or next generation farmers who might be the successor to the land and or business. So this is a year-long program, the Regenerator, a year in farm succession planning. And it's going to take these farm and ranch business teams through the succession planning process. And there are so many topics that go into that, including business structuring, estate planning, finances, assessing the needs of the retiring generation and the successor generation, transition of management, and communication is actually the most important piece. it's the most important piece in all of this, right? It's the most important piece when negotiating a lease, and it's equally, if not more important, when discussing the transition of land and business to the next generation. And that's why this program really has communication as the backbone throughout. We're going to be talking about and building upon all of these more business and hard skills subjects, but the soft skills of communication is the backbone of the whole program, because we're wanting to bring in all the different stakeholders, the retiring generation, the successor, the heirs, so they aren't surprised and don't derail it halfway through planning, you know, that and so that these families can continue to have Thanksgiving dinner together and not create huge rifts in families. So we're really excited about the Regenerator. We've just extended the application period through July, time flies, July 22nd. And so if you are a member of a family or are a successor, please take a look at our website, californiafarmlink.org, and then there's just a succession tab you can click on to learn more details about that program. But we think it's really innovative. It's taking a whole year to go through the process, because over the years we've had these one-off workshops where we kind of introduce the topic, but it never seems to be enough. So then we tried 2 workshops or 3, still not enough. So a whole year taking folks through the planning process, meeting once monthly in the Sacramento region, and folks who complete milestones along the way are eligible for up to $1,600 in technical assistance, a stipend basically to meet with the lawyer, meet with the estate planning attorney, meet with the CPA or any other service providers that you may need in order to complete that planning process as well. So that's forefront on my mind as kind of FarmLink's approach to this right now, in addition to our land linking and land portal work and our support of educating landholders to find successors. This is a program for once they have found a successor. And of course, we're bringing in some of those financial solutions into that program as well. So I'll stop my pitch there, but that's been my baby for the past 2 years. So I'm pretty proud of the work that we've put into it. And we look forward to helping some families and their successors plan successfully.
Excellent, thank you. Let's see, a couple follow-up questions here. At the beginning, you had mentioned other land listings. Are there other places that if people are looking at your website and your portal and they don't see anything that works for them, is there another place that they should be looking?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about your land search. And I'm not pretending that any of it is particularly easy. It takes a lot of work. But I first recommend kind of sketching out a plan of attack for how you're going to search. FarmLink is just one tool in your toolbox. One of the first places, especially if you're looking to purchase, but also if you're looking to lease, is to contact a realtor in the region that you're looking. They may, specifically someone who works in ag, there may even be properties that are for lease that they know of. There may be properties that have been on the market for a long time that owner might be open to a lease with option to purchase. So becoming familiar with some realtors and getting some searching in that way is successful. One of the most successful ways to find land is word of mouth. A lot of listings don't even get listed anywhere because unfortunately there's a bit of an old boys network. But if you communicate with experienced farmers in the region that you're looking to lease or purchase, start telling folks that you are looking. if you already have a business and you are specifically, if you're direct market, blast your CSA, tell your customers that your farm is looking for land. Word of mouth is really, really powerful. And you don't know who might know someone who might have land available. So that's another great solution. There's different listservs and Facebook pages that sometimes get land that come across them, or sometimes some of the farmer education programs, folks will come to them with land opportunities too. A lot of times they send those folks to us, but sometimes they, if they have you in mind that you were looking, they may just send that person your way. So getting onto those listservs, saying that you are looking, places like Farmers Guild and NYFC have Facebook pages that might be a good source for you. Occasionally things like Craigslist. As with any opportunity, please be safe and careful, both because of COVID, but also because you never know. So please bring a friend, especially when doing Craigslist activities and the like, visit a property with someone else. But yeah, those are just some. Sorry, I do a whole presentation on this, so I'm trying to condense it. But if you have been, let's say you've been driving by a property for years or whatever months, and it just always looks like no one's doing anything there, and you would love to contact that landowner, and there's a house there, it's print up a business plan or bring your business card, or contact FarmLink. And if you're working with us, we can give you some brochures even to hand to them, so it feels more official. But I have seen farmers have luck just walking up to a house and knocking on the door. If the owner is not there, you can find out the address and the name of an owner by going to the county recorder's office. So that's another good option as well if you happen to see a property that you're looking for.
Excellent. It sounds like it's quite the quest, is what it sounds like.
It is. So create a plan of action on how you're going to tackle this, kind of one avenue at a time, and spread your net wide, while also limiting yourself to no more than 2 or 3 counties that you're looking in. So really know what you're looking for first.
There's definitely no one-stop shop, it sounds like, place to find property. So then I'll have one last question for you, Leah, and then Joaquin will go to you. And again, this will be another difficult question to make short and concise, but there's a sort of central tension around the sort of the cost of the property being sold for retirement, and then how that translates into overhead for the incoming successor, new farmer, whatever the arrangement is. What are some of the ways that you all see addressing that in the agreements that people make?
Yes, this is another big one. So I'll try to keep it to the general concept. So one option to bridge that is to plan long-term. So oftentimes that gap is too large to just purchase outright at the time. There are some tools to potentially purchase outright, including there's farm service agency tools that can decrease your down payment needed. There are conservation easements, but they can take a year or two to put in place. There are properties that are already under easement that may lower the purchase price at agricultural value. So there are a few tools for just an outright purchase up front. Some other options are to kind of make that transition and purchase process take a little longer. One is a lease with an option to purchase. So you can have a long-term lease where you've established the purchase price up front and the terms upon which the purchase will be triggered. And so usually what you want to do is you want to work with your financial advisors to figure out the period of time that you will need to build up your down payment and have the trigger occur at that period. So let's say it's 5 years or 10 years. You have a long-term lease with a purchase option that triggers at 5 or 10 years. And then you will have established the purchase price at the time of writing the agreement, so you know your goal. And of course, this requires a willing landowner who wants to do that, or a retiring farmer who wants to do that. So that's one option. Another option is seller financing. As with all of these options, I want to set up the caveat that your contracts need to be ironclad. Please work with service providers and lawyers to make sure that these contracts are secure. And if you're doing anything where it is like a seller financing type of payment, I recommend that you work with an organization that keeps track of that for you and provides some accountability and accounting. But yeah, you can do seller financing where some retiring farmers are willing to do this, where there's a down payment and you're making payments to the owner over time. And so the transition of ownership happens over a longer period of time. So yeah, those are just a few tools. FarmLink has also gotten really creative with financing in establishing potentially the purchase of the business first and the leasing of the land with a combination of some of these tools, either seller financing for the land or a long-term lease with a pathway to ownership. So kind of combining some of these tools so that you start with ownership of something. So you bought like the business and the assets maybe first, and then are working towards owning the land. And then some folks are perfectly comfortable just leasing very long-term. And there are some really interesting long-term development leases that build equity over time, especially if you're planning on putting in permanent infrastructure on the property. You want to make sure that the term of the lease matches the usable life of those items. And sometimes those items, if you're building, say, a barn, can actually appreciate instead of depreciate over time. So it's really, really overwhelming, but there are some tools out there. They're not all perfect solutions. It's still a huge gap. It's still a huge gap. So we're having to get creative. And so I think we need a combination of all of these tools, as well as policy solutions that are going to help incentivize and bridge that gap.
Yeah. And it sounds like one of the sort of key takeaways is getting as far ahead of it as possible buys time. And then with that, it's easier to get money. It's easier to know how much money. It's easier to have more communication. Rushing last minute meaning 2 years is kind of a challenge.
Yeah. Plan and be prepared. I think that a really important thing that Lucy said earlier, Lucy and her team came in to their land search extremely prepared. It's an example of how we all wish we could be in organization. But I think that knowing your business and being prepared and being prepared to be an advocate for yourself, and to explain to a landowner or to a financial institution, or just, this is your opportunity to really put your best foot forward. And so bringing all of your tools and weaponry to the table is a really effective way to start ahead instead of feeling that you're always trying to catch up. So definitely, there are a lot of service organizations that are here to support you. FarmLink is one of them, but you have to meet us halfway at least. So I encourage everyone to really spend the time to do your homework. As Lucy said, you are operating a small business. It is a business first. I know that we all got into farming because we like playing in the dirt, but the behind the computer work is equally, if not more important. maybe not as fun, but definitely as important.
All right, so Joaquin, we got a little bit of an overview when you spoke earlier about the Rancho San Benito program. So let's try to, I'm curious to hear sort of how you describe sort of the process as it's going to work for the farm workers going through Rancho San Benito. You know, because you're working with a group of people who want to be farmers, who are already farming, and your program sort of has a couple of steps that enable them eventually to get to operating their own cooperative farm at first, and then eventually if they want to break off and do something independent. So sort of what's the sort of flow for those farm workers?
Well, let's see. First of all, you know, when we came up with this model, it took us a few years, you know, a couple of years to do education for ourselves, you know, to educate ourselves, you know, what's out there, learning about what organizations are doing, farming co-ops, how they're doing that. So it was a lot of learning, a lot of research, looking into different models, how, and, you know, in what model would fit best, you know, to the community that we are going to be working with. So that, you know, we looked into this group model in Salinas, no, Alba. That's agricultural land-based training, you know, association. Been doing this for about 40 years, I believe. So their model, you know, we like parts of it. We would like to implement parts of the model, you know, in Rancho San Benito. So what the transition is with Alba, they start, you know, the model starts with an education of a half an acre that moves on to a full acre in a couple of years. And then they are pretty much, you know, complete the training, the education, then they move on. The model with Rancho San Benito, members of the co-op can stay with the co-op as long as they want. So there's no term limit. So that education with part of it, but their work can stay with Rancho San Benito as long as they want. So it's about having the opportunity to learn all the aspects, you know, about running a business. It is a business after all. But for some families, you know, it's not just a business, it's a way of living. Part of the research that we did was about finding out that a family of 4 can actually survive in a quarter of an acre, you know, farming, and still have something extra to bring income into their home. So it was a lot of, we looked into a lot of different things, like say, you know, how will best benefit our community. We don't want to lose the farmland here in the coast. We also want to support our local farmers. So that was one of the questions that came up. One of the presentations that I did. If Rancho San Benito was gonna, you know, take over the farm workers, it's like, no. This is not the model. You know, the model for the co-op is farm workers to still want to continue to work for somebody else. You know, we actually have farm workers, or people that like to know about farming, that work on our local restaurants. So the opportunity for farming, it will be available for everybody. The education about running a business, you know, is something Rancho San Benito we're providing. And Rancho San Benito will also be providing the farming equipment, irrigation equipment, education in collaboration with the RCD here in the coast and other organizations that are protecting our open spaces. So finding the common ground, you know, we have to know the support. People have been, you know, farming for decades, but they've had a business. You know, so Rancho Mito will be providing that. Will be there. You know, like I say, it's a collaboration of the community in different organizations to continue the heritage of farming, to be able to provide, like I say, you know, from, you know, healthy soils, education about composting, carbon sequestration, So it's a whole collaboration. So new farmers have to understand that they're not alone. Um, we, in our case, we do a lot of work with, with people that are undocumented. Undocumented, farmers do not qualify for some of the services. So Rancho San Benito will be, providing the service that otherwise, be provided by the or state or federal government. Um, we work very close with the undocumented, farmer here in the coast. Last year, during 2020, he did not qualify for any of the services. He was not able to sell his harvest. So Alas, here in Half Moon Bay, we work with him. We part of what Rancho San Benito will be doing for or future farmers. Alas did that. We actually use our social media. We collaborate with local restaurants and local markets to be able to sell his produce. He is a bean expert. He grows, 5, 6 different types of beans. That includes, garbanzo beans, Peruvian beans, pinto beans, fava beans. So, so we did a lot of work with him to be able to make sure that his business did not go belly up. So we actually implemented part of what Rancho San Benito will be doing for the future, farmers. Um, Finding the land, it is part of our quest. Rancho Benito taking the lease of properties. Um, in this case, be a long-time lease, something that will benefit, the members of the co-op. It is not easy to invest in a property that you could only have a lease for 5 years. So we're looking into longer-term lease, 10 years, or more. That will take the time to actually properly heal the land, properly prepare the land for a better outcome when farming. And again, doing working with protecting our environment, healing the soil. So looking into that, it's not easy. The farmer that we were working with, he was pretty much on his own. Lucy did mention that sometimes it is or families that help us, when we farm. So in this case, it was his family that were helping him in a farm, but he had nothing else, no other financial resources. So he was, in danger of losing his business. He has been farming on his own for about 5 years. So he was hoping for 2020 to be, one of his best years, but then the pandemic hit, and he suffered, through the whole year. But, we were able to find, the financial support that he needed to continue to farm. So that's exactly, what we want to continue to do to Rancho San Benito. Like I said, going back to Alba does provide, they do run a curriculum. I love their curriculum, when it comes to the education about preparing our future farmers to run their own business. In our part, we want to continue to provide education, not about just about running a business, but how to make it a successful business. That's why they will not be in a hurry to ask them to be on their own. It will not be until they are prepared to be on their own. Once they can say, Rancho San Benito, we are ready to become an independent farmer. And then, of course, with the support of what Rancho San Benito will have to offer in other groups in the community, in the coast. We have, like I mentioned, we have a lot of acreage, on the coast that hasn't been farmed in decades. Now they're doing, maybe hay, maybe now we have trails, hiking trails over these properties. So in other developers want to take over this land. We've had this organization here in San Mateo County, in Santa Clara County. Are you familiar with Green Foothills? I don't know if you're familiar with that group. They have played a big part, in making sure that the coast has not been overdeveloped. Make sure that we continue to have a small highway that goes across past, or county, and not a freeway. So it is groups like that we actually also working with. to make sure that, that our community stays a small community, it stays a farming community, that we still enjoy, our farming. So, finding that common ground, with different groups, it's something we all have to do it. And, we have to think that we are not alone. Sometimes, we don't reach out into other groups, we will not find out that we are not alone. It's a collaboration, becoming inclusive. Every member of our community, even if it's a small property to farm. We talk about farming 1 acre at a time. Even if it's 1 acre, we can still, like I said, you can still grow enough in an acre for a family, for 4 different families. Family of 4 in a quarter of an acre, you can grow a lot and bring extra income. But it's just having the mentality that you don't have to farm 100+ acres to be able to run a business. It is, I mean, 1 acre is more than enough for a small family or for a small group, to run a co-op. So it's with that mentality, that we need to move forward, to continue, to farm, and give the opportunity for local farm workers or local family members, to continue, the heritage, to be able, I mean, Farmland, I know offers, services, but we don't have that, in our community. We pretty much go, in our part, we did a lot of, knocking on doors, about, having land available. We met with the different, landowners, and like I say, we are hoping, that this year will be our big opportunity, like it already happened, with the ranching, to show, the community what Rancho San Benito has been working on, for the last years, to putting something together, that hoping that other communities will look into, or to our model, just like we are looking into the Alba's model, to be able to do that. Giving the opportunity to farm workers, it's something we are really looking forward to. We see them as our future, our future farmers. Uh, so, and again, it's a collaboration. You cannot do it alone. The Farm Bureau in our coast, uh, is not really providing much, information for the future farming. They know there's a danger of losing, the farmland. So we have to say, we have to collaborate. We have to get rid of them, remove the mentality, of the old ranchers, the old farmers, the good old boys, to give the opportunity, to new farming techniques. There's, throughout the United States, 98% of the farmland of the United States, who owns that land? It's white farmers. People of color we are having a hard time finding the land. So it's taking us on our part doing a lot of outreach, into different groups, that includes, we just recently had a meeting, with the Chan Zuckerberg, Foundation, Facebook, who's now interested in funding programs like this, Rancho San Benito and other, farm worker model programs, to provide. I mean, we are talking about housing, proper housing, or farm workers, farm worker housing, it's not all what we think it is. Some of the old style barracks are still, available for the, for farm workers. So we want to improve the housing. We want to make sure that our farm workers stay in our community. We are thinking about, drinkable water, so we have to stop the use of pesticides and chemicals to go into our soils. We have to think about, protecting our, water streams, our creeks, or even our ditches, protecting the water that goes into our soils. Housing, what's available for housing, farm workers. Medical, we thinking about, health insurance, for our farm workers and our future farmers. So it's a collaboration of different, I mean, different parts of our community, different industries of our community, different parts of our government, to make sure that we continue to do that. If we don't do it, we're gonna lose our farm workers. If we lose our farm workers, we're gonna lose our farmers. If we lose our farmers, we're gonna lose our farmland. And guess what? Once we lose our farmland, there is no going back. There's no going back to, to the farmland. We're not gonna be able to tear down the building to go back to farming. So, so we have to think about that, giving the opportunity, to the people that really want to work the land, right? I mean, we understand that our older farmers did not prepare for retirement, and neither did the farm workers. We have, like I said, in the back of my picture, these people here, these farm workers, they're not young, they're not gonna be able to retire. We have farm workers as old as 83 or older, oldest farm worker still working in the coast. He's 83 years old because he's not able to afford to retire. He doesn't work full time, year round, but still needs to work. So we are thinking, we have that in mind. How can we better serve our community? We do, in Alas, we do provide a lot of services for our community to make sure, we work with the farmers to make sure that they have these farm workers available to continue to farm their land, right? So to be able to do that, housing, drinkable water, health insurance, dental insurance, all the resources. Last year, we did a lot of work, around, providing PPE for farm workers, or essential workers. So it's a lot of work, and it will take a lot of collaboration with different groups. And reach out to me, any questions that you might have, be happy to share with you. And hopefully soon, we'll be able to share with you the model that we have, doing here in Half Moon Bay, in the coast of Rancho San Benito.
Joaquin, thank you. So it sounds like there's, thankfully, there are actually some kind of repeating themes that we're seeing. There's a big need for resources, for support, because there's the actual act of farming, the actual planting, irrigating, harvesting, pest management, but then there's all these sort of other challenges. And it sounds like you're echoing a lot of the similar lessons, that it's really important to do outreach to find the organizations that you can work with to help you find the information that you need. And you were talking about how you were basically knocking on doors to try to find property as well. So sort of similar recommendation to what Leah was saying, that if there's not a Google search bar for farm property, so you got to look for it a bunch of different ways. When we talk about the co-op part of Rancho San Benito, my understanding of it is that can you talk about the sort of the way that, because you have a few farm workers working together, maybe I think it was 5 to 15, something like that. There's having them as a co-op means that they don't have to run this as a full-time business. So what are the advantages for them, it being a co-op, versus them as farm workers with full-time plus farm worker jobs, and then trying to just start a farm on the side? It sounds like it would be a really big advantage that they could work together, pool their labor in their after hours and their weekend hours. Is that the primary advantage of having them be a co-op? And are there other economies of scale that you get out of it?
Yeah, that's the advantage. That's how the co-op works. So the farm workers, or anybody who wants to do farming, will do this in their off time, pretty much. In collaboration, working on small groups of 2 to 5 members, in an area, to 2 to 5 acres, or 2 to 2 acres. So it will be depending, who they want to work with. So everything will be based on the ejido model, where members of the co-op will make a decision what they're gonna be farming. So Rancho San Benito will not tell the members of the co-op what to farm. Everybody's going to bring their specialties, right? So what they specialize on. So one of the members specializes in beans. So of course, him and the members of of his group will specialize in beans. If there's another member that specializes in flowers, so then this group will specialize in flowers. So it will depend. That is based on their knowledge, and their income will come in from their day job. In the being in the co-op is part of the after work hours, weekends. And all this will take is until they become prepared to become independent. But if they see a benefit of them continuing to be part of the co-op, they can be part of the co-op as long as they want. So they don't have to worry about, I'm coming on 2 years, as a co-op, and now I have to move on my own. No, they can continue to be part of the co-op if they see the income, the benefit of having two incomes, meaning from the day job and from from their farming their own property. Then that's where that's where they can stay. The thing is here is about making sure that they can actually see a benefit of them being part of the co-op, without, like I say, once they're ready. Rancho San Benito will provide the support, will provide marketing, but also provide the education for marketing, to be able to connect with our local markets, our local communities, CSA boxes going into other communities, bringing quality products into other communities. We're talking about the inner city of San Francisco, that are very limited to fresh produce. So it is a model that will benefit not just our farm workers, but actually will benefit our community, other communities, and of course our environment.
The next part that I want to move on here, points of cooperation. I kind of wanted to think, sort of what are the kind of bigger layers of cooperation that we could try to do or ask for, which is, a fun challenge that we get to have at the very end here, because it's kind of potentially the biggest, longest part of the conversation that has the least amount of time. So let's just do a quick round robin and try to think about, what is the sort of main point of leverage or main thing that your organization needs, that could be addressed at a higher level. Maybe it's multiple organizations, or maybe it's the state level, whether that's California or federal. Leah, I'll pick on you first, because I think you have an answer teed up you mentioned earlier.
I have a laundry list of, a laundry wish list, I should say, I think. But in this conversation, one of the things that comes to mind, especially because I'm feeling it very acutely right now, and as we discussed, we are not the only source of land opportunities, and outreach and education is really important for us, and we just need to have more landholders, both retiring farmers and just landholders, to connect with, so that we can better connect more farmers and ranchers with land and transition opportunities. So we are partnering with everybody that we can think of, and just trying to remind those partners that when they come across these opportunities, to just continue to send them our way, and talking with farmers. If you found a land opportunity, it was good, it wasn't the right fit for you, send them to FarmLink too, because it may be the right fit for another farmer. We need more and better and more affordable land access. And it's about educating, but it's also about finding those landholders. and making them aware of these opportunities and aware of the land access crisis and the needs of next generation farmers. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, I would love for there to be some list I could just pull from, or, you know, some central source. But it's actually, as an organization, it is very challenging to find these landholders. Most of the folks who come to us are through word of mouth of other landholders or farmers who have worked with us, who are spreading the word. So yeah, that's a big one. Was that the one you were thinking of?
You'd also mentioned a policy response, which,
Right.
you know, we could kind of take it or leave it on policy.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be a multi-year outcome, I guess.
Yeah, that's another way to get to kind of bridge that gap. I think that some states have incentives. Some states have different kinds of tax incentives. We've talked. This is not the first time this is coming up for us. We've been trying to put different land access messaging and incentives into pieces of legislation. And there is some promise on that in a few pieces that we've seen recently. Whether or not they make the final cut is the question, but, you know, incentivizing. I think that in this conversation we talk a lot about financial support and funding for the next generation of farmers. But in order to get to these landholders, coming up with incentives, usually around taxes, for selling their farms or leasing their farms to specifically next generation beginning farmers and socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers, which is the USDA term for BIPOC farmers, basically. So incentivizing that is I think will make a big difference, and get the attention of some of those white land owning individuals that we're hoping to put a big flashing red light in front of as we hope to increase land access for farmers and ranchers in California. So there's a whole other conversation to talk about policy, but there's a little.
All right, so we'll do is we'll go Lucy and then Joaquin, and then we'll wrap up. We've got 2 questions here, but we'll do those after we hear from y'all first. So Lucy, what's sort of like the biggest picture, I guess, need that your organization has?
Well, first, I just want to agree with Leah and also just say that what Joaquin is talking about and what Jock just mentioned in the chat, like, this isn't a level playing field, and there are larger institutional issues that are keeping people, especially BIPOC people, from owning land. And we don't face those issues as white farmers. So I just want to say that. I feel like what Flying V needs is more partners. And what I think would be interesting that's coming to mind, and Leah's talking about this like list and people are asking about resources, is like, let's just say someone hops on California Farm Link's website in the land portal and is like, we're looking for 5 acres of land to farm vegetables. That an organization like FarmLink might have a list of farms that already exist that are looking to expand in ownership. So rather than 2 people going to start their own farm somewhere, they're linked to a larger organization or a farm that's currently trying to expand. And I think that there's some real opportunity there. I feel like there's no avenue for us to receive people other than social media around bringing on more owners and people who can have a stake in the business and commit to it and grow with it. So I feel like there's a big hole there. And I'd love for like there to be some sort of like window that pops up that's like, oh, you're looking for land to farm. Like Flying V Farm in Placerville, California is looking for owners. They have an established business and they want to grow and they want other people to do that with them. And that feels like I'd love to dispel the notion that a successful farmer does it alone. And that is pretty deeply ingrained in our culture, but in general in farming, is this feeling that to be successful, you somehow have to have your personal name attached to your land or your business. And I think that if we could work on degrading that idea and bringing up community support and cooperative support, that you might see an actual successful ability to hang on to land before it is sold off to the highest bidder, as Leah said.
And Lucy, there are 2 ways that you can connect with farmers through our land portal. If you don't have a land listing, you can list the opportunity as a partnership, but then describe it in more detail. We could add a category for cooperative too, but right now it's partner, and list that you're looking for a co-owner. And if you're registered through the land portal, you can search other land seekers and connect with them through the blind messaging system in the same way. So
great, thank you.
All right, so Joaquin, you want to close us out before we do some questions at the end here? What's sort of like the, I guess, at a little bit of a higher level, what does Rancho San Benito need to sort of, what does it need most from, organizations, the community to sort of, get where you're going next?
Support. Supporting our local farmers is very important for us. That's one of the things that we keep in mind. Giving support, be able to like we are using throughout us, we're using a lot of our social media to be able to show what the our local farmers are going through right now. Last year we see not all the farmers, a lot of the farmers, they do provide as best as they can for the farm workers. So of course we return that, we return that back to them, by providing, program services for their employees so they can actually stay in business. It is the mentality, of some of the farmers, that they don't see. They are actually condescending on farm workers, that they will never be able to be running their own business. So that is discouraging, when you hear an older farmer who's ready to retire, who's ready to go out of business, and no one else in his family or their family to continue the business, and still don't see, as farm workers as being the next farmers. So they having a hard time letting go. They are having, and for us, it's like, you did your part. You provided for the community. You provided, employment. You provided housing. You're ready to retire. Give the opportunity to somebody else. We don't want to lose farming, and we have to be able to collaborate with the groups. It's a collaboration, for our future. I might not even see the benefit of, next year's, what Rancho San Benito is going to do for our community. But I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about right now, what changes can I make right now? What changes can Rancho San Benito make right now? To give better opportunities, for farmers in the future. Preparing the soil. Rancho San Benito, we are thinking about healing the soil. How can we heal the soil? Right? We're going to come into a drought, water, how all the practices that we can do for irrigation. So it's not thinking about selfishness, here, it's thinking about where are we going, where are we going to get to, who can we collaborate with, who can we reach out to, who can give us a support. It's a network, and that we are really good at. We are really good at networking, finding the people that we can network with, to help each other. It's not to help them or to help us, it's to help each other. And we have to stay with that mentality. Older mentality of the farmers It's like, I'm on my own, I don't need any help. Even if I drown, I'm not gonna ask for help, you know, and that's not okay. That's not okay. We are not alone, you know, we have support. All we have to do is really basic thing, you know, ask for help, you know, ask for advice, you know, become the advisor, you know, offer your services. And that's how we're gonna survive. So collaboration.
Excellent. Cooperation, you might even say.
Cooperation, yeah. Cooperación.
Sorry, I got to plug it. I'm sorry. What's up?
Juntos podemos hacerlo.
That's right.
We can do it.
Podemos hacerlo todo. It sounds like one particular point there too was the support broadly, and then also a change in attitudes and impressions, so that people don't see farm workers as people who are not capable of becoming farmers. So like broadly, there's all these support issues. The sort of, you know, rugged do-it-yourself farmer is probably going to drown alone kind of a thing, which I'm sure a lot of them feel that way with their 60 to 80 hour work weeks sometimes. So embrace support and change minds about perceptions of farm workers becoming farmers. All right, this has been absolutely fantastic. We'll do some quick. We've got 3 questions here, and then I'll release everybody. So Kelly has a question for us. For the 2 co-op farms, are you and other workers able to pay yourselves an hourly wage? In Wisconsin, most small, medium-scale, diversified farms hire employees and pay them hourly, but the farm owners aren't able to pay themselves that way. So I wonder what scale, et cetera, is necessary to generate the revenue to achieve that. Lucy, I think you would have some insight on that.
Yeah, we don't pay ourselves on payroll or hourly. We pay ourselves through a monthly distribution out of the bank account. So our workers do get paid on payroll and have an hourly wage, where we have a kind of minimum and maximum expectation of owners to work, which has grown over the years, but it's nowhere near where we want it to be. So we elected, actually, we're not a co-op corporation because we are not paying ourselves on payroll. So we're an LLC that operates as a worker cooperative in order to pay ourselves through distributions rather than hourly. Mm-hmm. I would say our hourly wage probably is about $14 an hour for the owners, which is fine, but not great. And but we have grown that every year. So our goal would be eventually to convert to a worker or co-op corporation when we feel like we can afford to put ourselves on payroll and the kind of costs that come with that. So right. I think it varies a lot. We've been very profit oriented, partially because we started the business with 4 owners off the bat. So we had to make enough to support 4 full-time workers right away. And that has been beneficial for us, and without any off-farm work. So we're able to pay ourselves year-round, even though we don't make money year-round.
Right, even though you don't have off-season revenue.
Right.
And then just to clarify, there's when you're talking about not being a cooperative corporation, you're talking about there's a specific legal distinction here in California where you can be legally a cooperative corporation versus what you are, which is an LLC that is operating as a cooperative, making cooperative decisions and so on. Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Which is fine either way. I remember there were some benefits to doing it the way that you had that sort of made payroll, like you said, easier. Mm-hmm. All right, so then we have from Wendy Johnson, we have a question for Joaquin. Joaquin, how does everyone get along? Who assists with conflict resolution? And in general, who offers farm cooperative support with positive communication skills? we'll do Joaquin and then Lucy, if you have some comments on that afterwards.
Like I mentioned, the co-op model is with people that work together, people that know each other. Let me give you an example. So it's be two brothers, two cousins, co-workers that will work, the plot of land on their own. That's their work. That's how they're gonna cooperate with each other. Conflict resolution. If it was any conflict resolution, will come from more part. That's the Rancho San Benito, that will do this. When they come into this model, there's an understanding, of the requirement for them to be part of the co-op. So everything comes from the beginning, understanding that they will not receive a biweekly pay or monthly pay. That's why it's very important for them to continue to have their day job, as a source of income, and their payday will come in, after harvest. So there's understanding that the work that they put into this, into their co-op, into their plot, that's their income coming in, during harvest. So there's a mutual understanding. Part of the contract will be to do that. It will be expected to be how many hours a week, are they working in the co-op. So when there's an understanding from day one, what is expected and what, the co-op is offering and what Rancho San Benito is offering, it will prevent, from any conflicts from coming forward or from happening.
Yeah. So sort of a lot of work ahead of making sure that people, in this case, already know each other, already get along, have probably done some conflict resolution among themselves already for maybe a couple of years or longer. And then also making sure that people's expectations about the business itself are really clear.
Yes.
From the organization.
So that's very important, coming into a co-op, be able to understand how, what is expected, on the co-op, and through education, practices, they will be sharing, in a classroom about learning from, running a business. So that's, that is part of, being part of a co-op.
Excellent. And then Lucy, do you have any comments on conflict resolution that you want to share?
This is a massive topic. Yeah, I agree with what Joaquin has said. It's really important that there's a common understanding of what is expected of everyone. Like I said earlier, the relationship to risk and finances, I think, plays a really big role in how people act at work, and especially when making large decisions together. Be very, very sure that you feel like you are compatible with and trust the people that you're going into business with. This was a mistake that we made, and was a very difficult process with ending a working relationship. And I feel like, yeah, if anybody is thinking about doing this, like, reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk on the phone about what we learned and how we've grown since the beginning. But communication, personal relationships, finances, risk, expectation, time, all of that plays a part in whether or not you're going to be successful working together. And I can't really drive home how important it is. And I think having like this, a larger governing body, can be really helpful in this circumstance. And what Joaquin is working on, a level above that's supportive. And Arizmendi in the Bay Area has this, and they're a very successful worker-owned bakery, and they have an association that supports their bakeries. And having that can be very, very helpful. CCCD was that for us in a lot of ways, and provided the communication support. Sassy, who is associated with CCCD, is a person who focuses on conflict resolution, communication, and those. She was very helpful.
I think that establishing soft skills, doing the professional development yourself, first of all, we all think that we're great communicators, but we're not always. And so there are some really great courses out there on just communications, having effective meetings, conflict resolution. There are some ways that you can do some professional development. Also, when dealing with cooperatives and partnerships, we tend to recommend that folks, and even in landowner tenant relationships, or just these kinds of relationships that really are contractual business relationships that really affect the success and could be a detriment to your business. We tend to recommend that folks kind of date a little before making it official, so there are different ways to do that in a cooperative setting, but kind of coming up with a more informal relationship for a period of time to get to know each other as individuals personally, and also everyone's working styles and skill sets is, I think, really important before entering into an official relationship. And then once you do enter into an official business relationship, the contracts are extremely important. And I think that Lucy would back me up here. The operating agreements, that having those include the process for partners and members exiting in a peaceful and easy way. That whole process of appraising shares, of even how appraisers are determined, in just allowing for, sometimes it doesn't have to be something, a big blowout that caused a member to leave. It could just be life, it could be family needs and requirements. And so just allowing for that to happen smoothly and that transition to occur easily without breaking the business is really important. So establishing those processes and also the communications process around these kinds of things is really important in your contracts and agreements. So that's what I'll say about all that.
I can't second that more, especially with the operating agreement. Don't rush through that.
Leah, do you have any recommendations for professional development, soft skill courses? I'm guessing your Farmland probably has some links there.
I'm not thinking of anything off the top of my head just now, but farm commons and land for good tends to have some of those that are a little bit more ag specific. So those would be my first two go-tos on those particular subjects.
Okay. Joaquin, did Alba have any classes that were on soft skills, conflict resolution, that sort of stuff?
I believe they part of their curriculum.
Okay.
They do have a contract, and they have a contract, attorney to address topics like that. I know in the past it's happened with some of the members of the co-op not agreeing with some of the things happening, especially to the cost of the selling their harvest. So it's always that it's going to be needed. It's something. That's why I commented. The Ejido model, where all the members of the co-op will come to an agreement. The work that they're doing, where they make decisions as a group, and again as individual decisions as what team are you part of, as a group, and then of the subgroups of the co-op.
Excellent. And then one last tiny, really simple question from Gwenelle. Worker co-ops are important, inspiring, also challenging, but we are all struggling to make equitable food production pencil out within a competitive marketplace, relying on grants, creativity, hard work, inheritance, and off-farm income, and more. At what point does it make sense to start thinking about healthy food as a basic human right that should exist outside of the marketplace? Does it make sense to riff off a public school system model for food production and landscape stewardship? Broad brainstorm here. So we might have to schedule a whole other talk for this. If anybody has any quick comments, they want to share, yeah, go for it, Lucy.
It's an awesome question. I totally think it makes sense to riff off this idea. I can imagine a more wonderful future than towns and communities, you know, having kind of their farms that provide for them, and that the farmers are supported by whatever it is, the tax base, or it's a wonderful vision. And I find the biggest obstacle is just for farmers to really approach these like revolutionary changes is just how exhausted farmers are, and to enter the world of advocacy and policy work feels like a major hurdle. And so again, you're kind of hoping for institutional support to address some of these large questions. And I love talking about this. I don't know exactly what to do about it. But I think that we're at a pretty rough place where a lot of farmers are questioning every month whether they should continue farming if they have the choice to continue or to stop continuing. And then a lot of people who must continue farming that don't have the choice to stop and are at the expense of their bodies and their minds and their finances. So I just want to say that I appreciate the question. I think about this stuff a lot. I don't know how to really take the next steps personally.
One of the things that I mentioned was about not thinking about farming, you know, in quantity, you know, but to be able to find the joy, you know, in farming, you have to see more than just, you know, farming in quantity. For example, I've been raising chickens for about 7 years, right? Really organic, very, you know, free range, some of them, and just learning how to better, you know, offer, you know, organic eggs into the community. You know, so doing that, you know, thinking about the fun of doing this, you know, having more local students. For example, I have my nephews and nieces, you know, help me feeding the chickens. They love, you know, feeding the chickens. They ask when it's time to feed the chickens. So doing this, you know, incorporating that, you know, into our daily lives, you know, of farming, especially when farming, you know, and ranching is in your heritage. You know, it's, I mean, I grew up in a small community in Mexico, came to the States much later. So I do find that joy, you know, in doing that. And I think, you know, when we're given that opportunity, that we don't see that as actual work, but as a way of living, you know, it becomes more joy to be able to do that. You know, whether you are, you know, growing, you know, flowers, or you're growing, you know, food, lettuce and beans, you know, I mean, so it depends what it is. So incorporating that into our community, uh, into our schools, into our, you know, young, you know, future, you know, farmers. So it's a tricky thing to do, but we will not find out how tricky it is until we try it, you know, and we have to give that opportunity, you know, to each other, to see. Let me give you an example. When we talk, there's the Hill Project, you know, about working with elementary students about farming, right? So they get to do all the work first, you know, and then they get to eat what they grew in the farm. You know, the way we see it, we want to go the opposite way. You know, we want to be able to offer what is farmed in our community, the fresh, you know, fruits, produce, you know, salads, everything, and then tell our kids, you know, how do you like what you're eating? This is the process that you go through to farming. So you go reverse. First, you taste the produce, and then you learn about the work that it goes to get to there. So make it joyful, you know, enjoy it.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful way of living.
I remember when I was working on a farm and working farmers markets every weekend, that was always the way that we got people hooked. Get their kids to eat the tastiest produce they've ever had. Usually strawberries are a good gateway.
Exactly.
And then once you get them young, then they're going to eat healthy for the rest of their lives, hopefully.
Yeah, and you know, and that's why, you know, talking about healing the soil, you know, to give you a better, you know, better quality, you know, produce. So
Yep. Excellent. Well, I think we've covered all the ground just about. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joaquin, Lucy, Leah. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. Sorry for running over. This has been truly excellent. And thanks to everyone, to our interpreters, and also to all of our participants. So again, thanks everyone, and have an excellent day.
muchas gracias. Thank you.
Gracias. Till next time.